All right, everyone, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you again for joining us and welcome to the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, formerly the Department of Business Oversight, Financial Literacy Month webinar and virtual resource fair. Bit of a mouthful. My name is Daniel Emmons, and I'm an information officer with the Education and Outreach team at the DFPI. This event, in recognition of National Financial Literacy Month, is typically held outside the state capitol in Sacramento and at the Ronald Reagan State Building in Los Angeles. But like many things this last year, we've moved online. This webinar and virtual resource fair aim to help spread awareness and enhance education around the very important topic of financial literacy. I should also note that recently President Biden declared that April is Financial Capability Month, which is simply an updated take on the same crucial initiative. And we certainly appreciate the attention that has been paid to it at the federal level. We have an excellent group of people and organizations contributing to today's event, led by Spike Keil from the FDIC. We also have DFPI's own Jackie Wiley, who will be giving us a brief financial literacy workshop. Our exhibitor partners sharing today include Carol Lally from the US SEC, Jennifer Sakamoto from the State Controller's Office, Dana Salas from the State Treasurer's Office, and Tiffany Vick from CalHR. A couple of housekeeping things before we jump right in. Everyone will be muted for today's presentation, but if you have questions, feel free to email any of the presenters directly, or you can send an email to outreach@dfpi.ca.gov, and we will make sure that it gets to the right place. And I want to remind everyone that there are additional resources for this initiative on our website at dfpi.ca.gov/resource-fair. And all these resources come from our fantastic group of partners and exhibitors, so please go visit the virtual resource fair booths after our webinar. All right, enough of me, let's jump right in. First up, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Community Affairs Specialist with the FDIC, Spike Keil.
Thank you, Daniel, and good afternoon. My name is Spike Keil with the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and I'm honored to be with you today. To me, financial capability gives people the power and confidence to make the most of their money and improve their lives. After a year plus of COVID and so many tremendous impacts, whether it was health, well-being, economic, and many others, financial capability has never been more important than it is today. Next slide, please. The FDIC is an independent federal agency, and we're one of the primary bank regulatory agencies. Our role in financial education and literacy is to distribute Money Smart, or financial education curriculum, train the trainers on Money Smart, provide technical assistance on partnerships and implementation, and to highlight promising ways to use Money Smart and supporting resources. Next slide, please. So why is financial capability so important that it gets its own month? So I draw from the Financial Literacy and Education Commission, FLEC, their 2020 U.S. National Strategy for Financial Literacy, which says, financial education is key to unlocking the foundations of economic opportunity, empowering a strong and resilient economy. Americans must acquire financial skills and knowledge to fully participate in our dynamic economy. Next slide. On a related topic fundamental to financial capability, we invite you to join the FDIC in bringing unbanked communities into the financial mainstream. From a publication last year called How America Banks, 5.4% or 7.1 million households are unbanked. Having a bank account is critical to receive timely tax refunds, stimulus payments, and other government payments. On our website and through these links, we have tools, data, and other resources for banks, nonprofits, government agencies, and others that can assist and support helping people get banked. Next slide. This slide shows a summary of the FDIC's Money Smart products that we have available. First, we have those to teach others. These free financial education products cover individuals of all ages with material relevant to the appropriate age group. Each teaching curriculum comes with an instructor guide, a participant guide, and slides to help support instructors. The FDIC also have products to help individuals learn at their own pace with no instructors needed to sort of utilize these resources. You can also find implementation tools such as Money Smart News and the Money Smart Alliance to help your work and efforts in these categories. Next slide. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the Money Smart Alliance. Essentially, it's a joint effort between the FDIC and others designed to promote and enhance the implementation of financial education using Money Smart. Alliance members are diverse in nature and include banks, universities, military institutions, community college, adult service providers, CBOs, faith-based organizations, private sector companies, and others. If you're using Money Smart or interested and are not currently a member, I encourage you to follow the link here and join this like-minded alliance to help support your efforts and your initiatives to help financial education and financial literacy reach the communities that you all are serving. Next slide, please. With that, that concludes my remarks. Please go to the FDIC's website to get more insights and resources and tools available through our Money Smart initiatives. Please reach out to me if there's any support we can provide in helping you implement or utilize or develop partnerships supporting Money Smart and financial literacy. So thank you. And with that, I'll hand it back to Daniel.
Thank you so much, Spike. We appreciate it. And now I would like to welcome our very own DFPI Outreach Specialist, Jackie Wiley. Take it away, Jackie.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to represent the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation today at this financial literacy webinar. I want to just start by getting right into it and starting with our new name change. Next slide. So what happened with DBO? A lot of people are asking that question. With the governor signing the two bills on September 25th, it created the new California Consumer Financial Protection Law, renaming the Department of Business Oversight to the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. Ooh, that's a mouthful. And it also gave us gave the department expanded authority to protect Californians from financial fraud and pandemic-inspired scams. It also created another division to supervise those financial services not regulated by the DFPI. It's fostering financial technology innovation, which is another new law, and it's also allowing our education and outreach team to continue providing awareness to the consumers. So with the name change comes expanded scope. The FBI enforcement is ramping up. This is always a joint effort to protect Californians from financial fraud as we collaborate with state, federal, and local agencies. So remember, the DFPI's mission is the same with oversight of new regulations. Next slide, please. So yep, we have the same mission, but we have an expanded scope. We will continue to regulate state licensed financial institutions, products, and professionals as those that are listed here. And most of you know that we license and regulate the chartered banks, credit unions, financial lenders, mortgage lenders, and servicers, and the like. But effective January 1, with the new expansion and this new law coming into play, we will now oversee the credit repair and consumer reporting companies, debt collectors, debt relief providers, rent-to-own contracts, and private for-profit schools funding models. For a more expanded list of the licensees and the industries regulated by the department, you can go to our website, which is indicated here. Next slide, please. So like Spike, I wanted to ask this question: why is the emphasis on financial literacy? With so much going on during the pandemic, millions of consumers have struggled and continue to do so financially. But by collaborating and networking and using platforms such as this one today, it's to bring awareness about the resources, workshops, and tools that are available to help one to manage money, create savings, invest, which can aid in becoming financially successful. Learning how to save for future goals. I teach my kids about having a rainy day fund. Learn the importance of credit scores, and the differences between credit versus debit. And learn how to manage finances to lessen the chance of having to borrow. So with that being said, in honor of the National Financial Capability Month, it's always a good thing to learn and seek legitimate financial resources that can help you create this. And with that being said, while managing finances are important, it's especially during this time, it's equally important to provide awareness to California consumers on protecting themselves from fraud. Next slide, please. I wanted to just put this slide up so that people can understand and see how scammers are working. This is some of the trending scams that we hear about often when I'm out there in the field, well, from home now, and consumers are complaining and are being defrauded in this manner. There are so many scenarios created to scam and defraud, especially since the pandemic. Scams have heightened, become more believable, and many are falling victim. Next slide, please. Next slide. It's the DFPI's mission to help protect consumers from falling victim to unfair, deceptive, and abusive practices and acts. So I'm so happy to be a part of the DFPI's education and outreach team as we continue to bring awareness to California consumers through platforms such as this, educational presentations and resources, partnering with some of you out there, other local, state, and federal agencies and organizations, and we continue to distribute our educational publications and provide educational resources which can be found on our websites. So you're getting the short version today, but if you're interested in having a full presentation on protecting yourselves from fraud, your neighbors, your consumers, or your organization, please reach out to the DFPI team, and our website is located on the screen here. So with that being said, it's today I wanted to bring awareness to a few new scams, opportunities, again, to steal your finances and personal information. And I'm going to just start with this. Remember that the IRS won't call you. Next slide, please. So don't let anyone steal your money. It's tax time, refund time, stimulus payments are coming. But we need to be aware of the IRS imposter scam. And this is a bogus website links that mirror the official IRS website. And it also will give you an instruction to update your IRS e-file immediately. It's going to start asking for personal information, but it's false. People are becoming us. They're filing false taxes. And also beware of these bogus websites because they carry malware that infects computers and also, which is really weird, to track your keystrokes to gain private information. Let's talk about the stimulus checks. Round 3. We all know that the stimulus checks come in 3 ways, either direct deposit, a paper check, or a prepaid debit card via mail. The IRS is the one who is going to determine how you will be paid. But you need to be aware that if you receive a text message or an email that's promising you to deliver that economic impact payment or stimulus check, as we call it, quicker, run for the hills, hang up, it's not true. So please be mindful that the IRS will not call you, and be mindful of this current scam that's going on now. So next I want to talk about the vaccine. Millions have received it, yay. Next slide. But the scammers are always on top of things. So millions of Californians are getting vaccinated. So the newest scam, thank you, Antonia, one of our outreach team members, provided this information here about the vaccine survey scam. Like always, offering a free prize. And we always have to remember, sometimes free is not always free, because what this survey does, it asks you for your personal information. They're promising you really good gifts like an iPad Pro. But the catch is you have to pay for the shipping and handling. And if you have to pay for the shipping and handling, what are you going to be providing? Either your credit card number or your debit card number. And then you're never going to see the prize. You're not going to receive it, but that is opening you up for identity theft. Next slide, please. It's not just common scams. Consumers have been and are still struggling with staying in their place of residence. Scammers know that too. So those of us who are struggling and you get that phone call and with these deceptive messages, those that are listed here, please don't fall victim by paying someone to help. You could lose your money or your home. Sometimes we rush into making decisions and wind up trusting the wrong person. Next slide, please. So it's always best to go to the source first. And always remember that who you're working with or who you're paying your payments to, ask them how they can help lower your payments, how they can help you with housing relief options. The governor and the president has put in the current foreclosure moratoriums and the mortgage forbearance, blocking home foreclosures, offering delayed mortgage payments. And this is going to be going out at the end of July. So we have to start thinking about ways to other relief options. But then the new rent relief program has come into play, offering financial assistance to renters and landlords for unpaid rent. So there are options out there, and these are legitimate options. And it doesn't help to seek housing counselor to help create a budget if you're still struggling with how to do that. You can always contact the DFPI if you need to file a complaint or get information pertaining to your mortgage servicer or your lender. If you need to file a complaint against a loan modification consultant, but that's the Attorney General's office, and then always helpful resources from the CFPB. So with that being said, remember that verifying information before you do business is critical. Next slide, please. That's why we always suggest before you make a final financial decision or engage in any type of business, do your homework, do your homework. That by calling the DFPI's Consumer Services Office for help, or hit us on our link, Ask DFPI. We do have in-live person call centers, I love saying that, with multi-language capabilities, and the representatives are able to help verify the license and status of a financial institution, service, or professional, because I don't want to do business with somebody who is not properly licensed, and I'm sure you don't as well. We can help you learn how to help you with filing a consumer complaint against an individual institution licensed by the department, as well as referring it to the appropriate regulator if it's not within our jurisdiction. So please don't hesitate to contact us at 866-275-2677 or go into our website. You know the saying, if you heard of something, you heard the saying, see something, say something. Well, if you know something, tell us. Don't let fear or embarrassment keep you from doing that. Next slide, please. So if you think you've been a victim of fraud or a scam, consumers are our eyes and our ears, and the information is vital to the department. So if you learn about the activity of our licensees, if you feel like you've been a victim, you need to file a complaint, or you are aware of a licensee breaking the law, please don't hesitate to contact us. Next slide, please. And we are all over the place now, so there's no reason for you not to have our information, our website, our toll-free number, and please follow us on social media. We are now on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And lastly, there's a new way to contact the department or to stay connected to us. Next slide. We have a new newsletter that's coming out, so you don't want to miss out on that. The newsletter is going to help California consumers be up to date on our educational events, financial tips, and the upcoming trends on scams. So stay connected and sign up and subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you, Daniel. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. That was excellent. Next up, we will hear from some of the fantastic organizations partnering with us today. Leading off is supervisory attorney in the Complaints and Inquiries branch of the SEC's Los Angeles office, Carol Lally. Thanks for joining us, Carol.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting the SEC to speak today. As you may know, the SEC is the exclusive federal regulator of the United States securities markets, which are considered a model for the rest of the world, both in terms of the markets themselves and our legal regulatory structure. The Los Angeles regional office covers Southern California, Hawaii, the Pacific Islands, Arizona, and Nevada. I have worked at the SEC for just around 18 years. I spent about a decade in the Division of Enforcement, investigating and prosecuting some of the securities fraud type actions that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. And for the last 7 years or so, I've been the supervisor over the group in the Los Angeles office that conducts investor outreach like we're doing here today, and also liaisons with the other agencies and community groups, and takes in tips and complaints and referrals and general questions from the public about the securities market. So I'm going to take myself off camera briefly so that we can focus on the slides, both you and me, and then I'll come back on camera at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. All right, before I speak in public, I'm always required to give this disclaimer, which basically says that I'm not providing legal advice or investment advice today. We're just going to talk about the background of the SEC, some principles of sound investing and avoiding fraud, and just give you some general information about what we do and the concerns that we have and that we see in the larger investing community. Next slide, please. The SEC has a three-part mission, which is to protect investors, to maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and to facilitate the capital formation that has really made the United States such a successful country financially and provided for many of the dreams and hopes of the people of the United States. Next slide, please. The SEC is a relatively small agency compared to the landscape that we cover. We have more than 4,000 employees at DC and 11 regional offices, but we oversee more than 28,000 market participants, 21 exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange, and over 9,000 publicly traded companies. Plus, we oversee self-regulatory organizations such as FINRA that help police various aspects of the securities market. Next slide, please. We conduct inspections of the entities that we oversee, such as broker-dealers and investment advisors, and we review the filings of the public companies that I mentioned earlier. But in addition to our regulatory role, we are a law enforcement agency. We investigate and we prosecute violations of the federal securities laws. We are a civil agency, so lots of times I get asked, why hasn't the SEC thrown XYZ bad guy in prison? I would love to be able to throw XYZ bad guy in prison, but we are not a criminal agency. The civil remedies that we have are actually pretty extensive. We can seek monetary penalties, we can bar bad actors from the industry, but some of our cases also have a component that rises to the level of criminal concern. And so very frequently we do work with the Department of Justice or other criminal agencies who will conduct their own criminal investigation and may seek criminal penalties such as jail time. Just to give you a sense of the extensiveness of our remedies, and many of the investigations and prosecutions that I worked on, in addition to getting monetary relief, we would also get a receiver placed over the company that was causing problems, and then the receiver would operate the company lawfully and attempt to get money back to harmed investors. I've gotten repatriation orders to get money back that's been sent overseas. I've had border watches put in place where we've had individuals who've been seized at the border who were trying to flee the jurisdiction of the United States. So pretty broad civil remedies that the SEC has. And as you can see on the slide, for the year that I have the most current data on, in 2016, we filed more than 850 enforcement actions and recovered more than $4 billion. Much of which we can attempt at least to get back to investors when there are harmed investors in the enforcement action. Next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned, the office that I supervise also responds to complaints and inquiries and conducts educational programs such as we have here today. We provide investing education programs to all different kinds of groups. I go to military bases when I'm allowed to travel and there's not a pandemic, or I can do it virtually now. Military bases, schools, teachers, affinity communities, churches, synagogues, temples, resource fairs, basically any group that you are part of. If you think they could benefit from investor education such as we're having here today, I hope you would reach out to us. It's a really key part of our mission. And then, as I mentioned, I also supervise the group that responds to investor inquiries and processes the tips and complaints and referrals that we get, which, as you might imagine, during the pandemic have been quite voluminous, even more than typical, as fraudsters like to take advantage of uncertainty to find new victims. Next slide, please. Pretty much everything that I talk about today is going to be available to you and the public on our website, www.investor.gov. And this website has a lot of information. You can see on the slide, there's a red arrow pointing to a tab, Protect Your Investments. That section includes a lot of resources on fraud, how to avoid fraud, how to report securities fraud to the SEC. And then in the landing page that you see on the slide for investor.gov, if you scroll down just a little bit, there is a link to the portal where you can input a tip or complaint that you might have about potential securities fraud. But there's lots of other information on this site too. So if you are new to your investing journey or a long-time participant in the securities market, and most of us, whether we know it or not, are, even if you don't trade actively on the New York Stock Exchange, you might have a 401k or other retirement account that is invested in the securities market. Here's where you can get a lot of information about what investments might be right for you, what certain terms mean. There's a lot of helpful information like a compound interest calculator. And as you can see on the slide on the landing page, you can check out your investment professional. If you have someone who is trying to buy or sell securities on your behalf or offer you investment advice, the very first thing you want to do is research that person. Make sure they're registered, see if they have any disciplinary history, and you can do that right on our webpage, investor.gov. Next slide, please. One of the things I want to highlight today, though, is the negative side of any kind of financial transaction that you're involved in, including the securities market, and that is, unfortunately, fraud is quite prevalent across the United States and really across the world. A survey by the Finner Foundation found that 8 in 10 respondents were solicited to participate in a potentially fraudulent offer. But even more troubling, 16% of all respondents invested money in response to at least one of those offers, and 11% of the respondents lost a significant amount of money by participating in one of those offers. As you can see on the slide, roughly $50 billion a year is lost by Americans to financial fraud every year. So unfortunately, it is a real problem and just emphasizes the need to talk about financial capability, both in terms of positive planning and in terms of protecting yourself from the negative forces that are out there in the securities market. Next slide, please. Here are some of the common scams that we're seeing at the SEC, which overlap somewhat with what the DFPI mentioned. I want to highlight in particular one that we've probably all heard about and that unfortunately is perpetually common, and that is a Ponzi scheme where individuals are investing in some sort of scheme, getting what they think are returns, but the returns are actually just the investment principal coming from other investors. This is an extremely common scheme that never seems to get old. And unfortunately, we see quite a lot of when people think of a security, what they typically think of is something like a stock traded on the New York Stock Exchange, which is, of course, a security. But the definition of security is broader than that. A security is anytime people are pooling their money with the expectation that they are going to get profits, and they are being passive. Those investors are being passive. They're not undertaking the profit generating activities. They expect that the principals of the entity that they're investing into will do that active work and then generate the profits that will be paid back to them. That's a security. So securities often take the forms of things like investment contracts, and these more, let's say, informal investment arrangements. People don't necessarily think to themselves that involves a security, something that the SEC might have jurisdiction over, but very frequently it does. And unfortunately, a lot of these kinds of securities are not registered, even though they might lawfully be required to be registered. And this is where we do tend to see a lot of fraud. So if you are aware of something along those lines, your first thought might not be the SEC, but the SEC more than likely does have jurisdiction over that conduct. Next slide, please. Who falls victim to security fraud? Unfortunately, the answer is pretty much everyone. Here are just a few examples of some of the recent groups that we've seen targeted by scam artists: seniors and retirees, ethnic communities, military personnel, actually quite a popular target of fraudsters, professional athletes, government employees, and religious groups. And in particular, I want to hone in on the definition of this term, affinity fraud, which was on the prior slide. An affinity fraud is something where the person who's the fraudster who's seeking out investment victims is part of the community that he's victimizing. So he may belong to the same faith community as the investors in his investment. And he's really using those connections to find victims. Just because you know someone who's trying to sell you an investment, don't take their word for it. Do the research on investor.gov and some of the other websites that the other agencies are going to talk about today. And remember that even if the person that's trying to sell you the investment is someone that you really believe you can trust, A, always do your research, and B, they themselves may have been a victim of the fraud and may have fallen under the spell of the fraudster and not realize that what they're selling you is in fact a fraud. Next slide, please. So last, I just want to give our contact information. What I've given here today is an extremely shortened version of a presentation that I can give to a number of different groups, as I said. So please reach out to us if you're interested in having someone come speak to you, either virtually or when we can all be back in person. Reach out to my office at losangeles@sec.gov. You can also submit general questions there or tips there, although I really encourage people, if they have a tip about potential violation, to go to investor.gov and submit it online, both because that's really the easiest, most efficient way to get the information to us. Somebody looks at those the minute they're submitted, but also there's information about submitting as a whistleblower. If you have someone or you yourself believe you might be entitled to whistleblower protection, you need to submit the tip in writing, and that's how you can do it online. Here's our phone number on the slide, 965-3998, 323-965-3998. We are answering phones. We are working. We're on Twitter. And again, please reach out to us if you're interested in investor outreach, if you have a tip or complaint, or you just have a question about securities investing. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you, Carol. That was great. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Now we're going to toss it over to Jennifer Sakamoto from the California State Controller's Office, who's going to talk to us about unclaimed property. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us. I want to talk about unclaimed property today. Before 1959, if a customer moved away or died and left money behind, the business would just often keep it for themselves. Now, California law requires a business, bank, insurance company, or other entity to give those funds to the state for safekeeping until the owner or an heir claims them. Businesses must turn over funds if they lose contact with the property owner for a certain period of time, usually about 3 years. The most common types of unclaimed property include uncashed paychecks, inactive bank accounts, insurance benefits, and safe deposit box contents. Right now, the state controller, Betty E., is safeguarding more than $10 billion in unclaimed property. To search for those properties in your name, you can visit sco.ca.gov and click Unclaimed Property. The State Controller's Office will never charge you a fee to claim your property. Sometimes you may receive a letter or a phone call from an investigator from outside of the Controller's Office claiming that they can help you get your property and they would just charge you a fee. Sometimes it's 10%. If you are contacted by an investigator, you should reach out to us directly. Many properties you can claim online, and it's always free to do. If you need assistance, you can call us at 1-800-992-4647. We have a team of people ready to help you, and you can get assistance in Spanish if you're more comfortable. I just did a quick search of some of our speakers, and Carol, it looks like you may have $49, and Daniel, you may have $39. I wanted to also briefly discuss a couple of the controllers programs that may be of assistance during these uncertain times. The first is property tax postponement. It allows eligible homeowners who are seniors, blind, or just have a disability to apply to delay payment of their current year property taxes on their principal residence. The deadline in some counties affected by wildfires has been extended to June 1st. You can find information on those counties and the program on our website. Second, the Controller's COVID-19 relief and assistance pages. We've created an online resource where you can look for relief for yourself, your family, or your small business. Descriptions of the state and federal programs, their qualifications, instructions on how to apply, and deadlines are all in one place and easy to understand. I encourage you to go to our website and click on COVID-19 relief and assistance. And I think we have a quick short video that shows you how to look for your unclaimed property online.
Welcome to the California State Controller's video about searching for unclaimed property on claimit.ca.gov. As you search for property that may belong to you, here are some helpful tips. First, Provide less information when you begin your search. A great starting point is not using a middle initial. For example, if your name is John G. Smith and a business reports property for John Smith, any property search that includes a middle initial will not show those results. We recommend leaving the middle initial field blank. If we search for John G. Smith, the search results in 18 records. If we remove the middle initial, we see more than 3,000 matches. From there, you can narrow the results by adding cities you've lived in or where you've received mail. When financial institutions, insurance companies, and other businesses report unclaimed property, the State Controller's Office is required to list the exact information provided by the business, even if a name, street address, city, or zip code is incorrect. Sometimes these mistakes are the reason a payment was not delivered to you in the first place and why the property ended up being sent to the State Controller's Office. When narrowing the search by city, you can enter partial information. For example, if you lived in Sacramento, you can just enter SAC for the city. Also, try common misspellings of your name. You do not need to enter your full name, and you can extend your search to nicknames. For example, if your name is Johnny and you go by John, you can just enter the letters JOHN in the first name field. Another common situation is the first and last name fields are mistakenly reversed by the business that reports the property. There are a few more items listed for John Smith when we reverse the first and last names in our example search. Once you have search results to view, look for any address where you've lived, received mail like a P.O. box, or have a family member. Once you've found an item that belongs to you, you'll see a property ID number. You can start the claim process by clicking on that link. You may even be eligible to use eClaim, which is the fastest way to claim your property. However, not all property is eligible to be claimed online. In some cases, you may need to print a claim form and mail it to the State Controller's Office with some additional documentation. Be sure to thoroughly read the instructions. If you would like more information about a listing you find on our website, write down the property ID number and provide that to our team when you call the State Controller's Office at 1-800-992-4647. Our call center is open 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. California time, Monday through Friday, except state holidays. Finally, if you locate an item but don't wish to submit a claim at this time, there's nothing to worry about. There's no time limit to submit your claim, and the property will be held indefinitely for you or your heirs to claim. The California State Controller's team is committed to helping rightful owners find and receive their property. Thank you for checking in with us. Welcome to the California.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. And I hope you guys will look for your unclaimed property. Thank you.
We appreciate it, Jennifer. Thank you so much. I definitely want that $39.
Yeah,
I'm going to go check it out.
You can claim that.
Next, I'm gonna welcome Outreach Specialist Dana Salas from the California State Treasurer's Office, who's going to talk to us more about saving for college. Go ahead, Dana.
Hi, my name is Dana. Next slide. So I work at the State Treasurer's Office. I am an outreach specialist, and here's my contact information if you'd like to contact me later about our program ScholarShare. It's a college savings program that I'm going to be talking to you about. Saving for college is very important, and we want to let you know a little bit more about how you could do it with our California State plan. Next slide. So these are a few things that we'll talk about in these brief minutes. So just the basics of paying for college, what's involved, and then our plan, ScholarShare 5 to 9, is it right for you and your family? And then we'll talk about how to open an account if you think this might work for you. And then once you open an account, we're going to talk about how you can make the most out of it. And then if you have any questions, you can send it over to Katie, and then we could talk a little more, or you could message me at my contact information, which I'll have at the end as well. Next slide. So the basics of paying for college. As you might know, college is very expensive from when you went to school, or you're already paying for college for your kids that are a little older. bottom line is expensive. So we'll talk about a little bit more about that. Next slide. So this is a little information about what it costs to go to higher education, different ways, different types of institutions. So the first one is public four-year. This is like Sac State, UC, LA, those type of schools. If you're attending and it's in-state California school, about $3,000 per semester. That doesn't include computers, cars, parking, that sort of thing. So per semester, that would really add up for 4 years. If you're looking at a private four-year, then probably $26,000. That's a lot. And so next we see the living costs, average what it could be. And then, we don't want the bottom line about this is you don't want to go with student loans. 18 years is what it could take to fully pay off student loans if, depending on the type of school you go with. And that's just some average information. But what we want to avoid is families to avoid student loans. Next slide. And with ScholarShare 529, your savings really add up. And as you can see from the graph, we could see that, let's say you put in $100 per month at the time you started your college account, let's say when your child is a baby. If you just save $100 per month, you might be able to save up, let's say $43,000. And these are just hypothetical results. But the beauty of these plans is that you get a tax-free earnings. So whatever you put in, the money will be invested in different plans, portfolios, which we'll touch a little later, a few slides. But for the most part, just know that with this plan, it is through investments and you do get tax-free earnings, being that it's a federal plan. It's made for families to save for college. So that's a perk. Next slide. So bottom line, college is expensive, as you may have personal experience or as you've researched, but when you save, it can really make a big difference. And another important thing is you want to start as soon as you can. Many parents start when they're babies or even before they have kids, but it's never too late because students may be in school for 4 years or 6 years for PhDs or become doctors, so you have a lot of time to save, so it's never really too late. But you do want to choose where you save. It can make the most out of your money. Next slide. So you may already know about these different ways to save for college, the UPMAs. Some people tap into retirement plans, or you might have a family general account that you tuck under your mattress. There are 529s like our plan ScholarShare, and there are cover girl savings account. All these have perks or some negatives. When you use money from all these other like retirement, let's say, you'll be taxed for using that money when you pull it out for other expenses. With ScholarShare 529, the earnings are all tax-free and you won't be taxed using it for higher education because that's what it's made for. And then with a family account, let's say in the bank account, it really doesn't grow, it just sits there. So you really have to weigh out the different plans to see what works for you. Next slide. So now that I've given you a little bit of information, you can start thinking and decide, well, does this work for me? Next slide. And just a little bit more about our plan, ScholarShare 529. It is the California official college savings plan. So you can be sure that is a reputable plan. We've been around for 20 years and we have over 10 billion in assets, and it's one of the largest 529 plans in the country. And so I work for the ScholarShare Investment Board out of the State Treasurer's Office. So you can be sure that this is a good plan for you to save. Since we've been talking about scams and everything, you can trust that this is a state program that can help you save for college. Next slide. So as I mentioned a little bit before, all the earnings that you accumulate from your savings are tax-free. So that can really make a big difference. Other savings account have some tax-free growth or something like that, or some growth, but with ScholarShare 529, there won't be any taxes on the earnings. Next slide. So when it comes to all the money you've saved up, you will have low investment fees, half the national average for 5 to 9s throughout the country, and 1/3 of average for broker sold plans. So say Wells Fargo, they have their own 5 to 9, Chase, but since we are from the state, it is a direct sold plan. So you won't be charged any fees to open an account. And you don't get any other fees like commissions, cancellation, transfers, that type of stuff. So you're not burdened with all that. So more money for college. And some people ask, well, will it affect my financial aid package? And it's actually one of the most financial aid friendly ways to save. And you can check out more of that information online. So we don't have too much time to get into it, but it's a really good plan that helps, that doesn't really affect financial aid. Next slide. And so you're thinking, okay, this is good. Well, how can I use the money? So you can pay for college, obviously, but it goes more than that. You can pay for computers, books and supplies, anything that's required for higher education, you can use the money for. Obviously, the money you've been putting in, that's your money, so you could take it out, but only the earnings will be taxed if you do use it for something other than higher education. So you can't just go and buy a Ferrari. That'll cost you some taxes. So as long as you use it for higher education, you're good. You can use the money in California or around the world. Some kids like to study abroad, so you can use it there as long as the school is accredited. And you could also change beneficiaries. You might be worried, well, what if my child doesn't go to college? Well, you could transfer it to another beneficiary and the money doesn't expire, just in case, maybe they want to wait a year to go to college. You don't have to use it at a certain time. So it's always going to be there investing, even for future grandchildren, it'll go that far. So don't worry about losing out for time limits. And like I said, you can withdraw for other purposes, but just make sure the tax problems that may arise if it's not for higher education. Next slide. And so, like I mentioned, savings are invested through portfolios. We have about 18. These are just some that I'm talking about today. There's one that's a guaranteed investment portfolio that's more stable if you're not really sure of the money market. And there's others that are, you could see if you're a savvy investor, could work for you. So you can check them out online as well. Next slide. And so who's eligible to open an account? Really anyone, often parents or grandparents, as long as you have a social security number or TIN. So anyone can really open an account. They do have to be 18 or older. The beneficiary is usually a child or grandchild, or even yourself. You can use it for yourself if you're going back to school. They have to have a social and TIN as well. And who can contribute? Anyone. So we have these options called YouGift, where parents can send out an email instead of the kids receiving some gifts, like toys. Some friends and family like to donate right into the college savings account. So you can learn a little bit more about that online. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, there you go. Next slide. So if you're ready to open an account, you could visit ScholarShare529.com, or you could call us at the number there, or you can find the number at ScholarShare529.com. And so a lot of people open their account online. It takes less than 15 minutes. You just have to have all the personal information, decide how much you want to save. And right there, you'll be able to choose an investment portfolio. And then obviously fund your account through like a bank or something like that. We do offer workplace savings. I'm not sure how many state workers are here, but we do have a plan, a partnership with the state of California, where funds can be taken straight out of your paycheck. So you could look into that as well. Next slide. Next slide. So once you have an account, you can make the most out of it. You could see on the slides there, you can use that YouGift program I talked about. You can increase your contributions. Follow us on social media. We do have promotions throughout the year. It's coming up in May, 5 to 9 day, where we're going to be giving out a $50 match to any new accounts. So stay tuned for that. Next slide. And next slide. This is our matching grant program. Just a little information about that. It's open to families that make under $75,000. And when an account owner opens a plan for a beneficiary under 14, they have an opportunity to get a match of up to $225. So that's free money that you can use to open a new account. And it's a dollar for dollar match contribution up to $200. And you have until December 31st to open an account this year. So you can also find more information about that at the ScholarShare matching grant program or / matching grant program. There's a link on the website too. Next slide. And that's pretty much it. You have my contact information there. So please feel free to contact me if you have any other questions about ScholarShare. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana, for joining us. We appreciate it. And now, last but not least, I would like to introduce Tiffany Vick from the Outreach and Education team at CalHR, who's going to talk to us a little bit about retirement savings. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Thank you. So yes, my name is Tiffany Vick with CalHR Savings Plus, and I work in the Outreach and Education unit. I'm very happy to be here with you guys today to speak to you a little bit about Savings Plus. I so miss the in-person events, but I'm very happy today to be with you. So we'll talk a little bit about Savings Plus and what it is and your contribution options, and we'll go from there. So Savings Plus is a voluntary employer-sponsored retirement program that allows eligible employees of the state of California to supplement their retirement benefits through payroll contributions. Now, we are separate from CalPERS, which handles your pension, but we work closely with them to help you prepare for retirement. So with Savings Plus, employees are able to contribute to either or both the 457B deferred compensation plan or the 401k thrift plan. And within those two options, you are able to contribute on a pre-tax basis, which provides some tax benefits while you're working, because all the money that you put in, you're not taxed on. So it lowers your taxable income while you're working. Or you can choose to contribute on a Roth after-tax basis, which allows you to pay the taxes now while you're working, and then any earnings that you get on that money when you retire, you won't have to pay any additional taxes. And you can do one or both, or a combination of the two if you like. Now, contributions can begin as little as $25 a month up to a maximum of $19,500 for the year for employees who are under the age of 50. And then once you reach 50, you get a bonus. You can go up to $26,000 a year. Now, you also have a variety of investment choices that you can use that range from conservative to aggressive. And we just want to let you know that any contributions or investments that you make can be changed free of charge at any time. So if you decide at some point to be aggressive in your investments, and then later on in your career, you decide that, hey, maybe you want to scale back a little bit and go a little more conservative, you can absolutely do that anytime. You can do that on a monthly basis if you choose. And the same goes for your contributions. If you start with the minimum, of course, we always encourage you to increase your contributions as much as you can. Increase as much as you can, as often as you can. So I would suggest, going into your account and making those changes at any time. And it's always free of charge to do that. Now, Savings Plus, financial literacy is really important to us. And we want to ensure that all state employees are as ready for retirement as possible. So in light of this, we're not going to leave you to figure it all out for yourself. There are plenty of tools on the savingsplusnow.com website to help you along your retirement preparation journey. So there is a retirement planner that you can use to help you figure out how much you'll need in retirement. There's an investment planner to help you choose the perfect investment mix for you. There's a paycheck impact calculator to help you see just how much your paycheck, your take home, will be affected by different contribution amounts. We also have a lot of different educational classes, no matter where you are in your savings journey. So from enrollment to investment to retirement. We also have classes for budgeting, how to start a budget. We have a class called Finance 101 to help you get to figure out how to save for a rainy day, how to get that emergency savings, how to get rid of those excess expenses that we all have every month that we probably don't need, that we can get rid of, but we don't even realize we're spending money on to help, put more money into our retirement. We have a class on Social Security, which is always really important to find out about before you actually retire. So all these classes are currently given as webinars because COVID, but as soon as we are given the okay to return to giving the classes in person, we will. And we'll be doing that either at our site, at our facility, or at any department who invites us to come. And as always, our classes are always free to attend, and you can register for them at calhr.ca.gov. So you can also contact us. I'm going to give you our phone number. It is 855-616-4776. We have representatives available from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific time. Representatives can enroll you in the plan. They can speak to you about your account, and they can also make changes to your account. You can also access your account at savingsplusnow.com, where you can also enroll. You can also make changes to your account. And when the time comes, you can also request retirement distributions online instead of having to fill out a form. Now, we also have licensed retirement specialists throughout the state that you can speak to. So you can find the specialists in your area. Their information, their email addresses and phone numbers are on the savingsplusnow.com website under the contact information. You can go directly to them, set up an appointment with them, not in person right now, but online. You can set up a one-on-one call and they can speak to you. They're a very valuable resource. Because they are licensed, they can speak to you about your individual accounts. They can look at outside accounts if you have them. Your spouse, if they have separate accounts, they can look at all of that and kind of help you make some decisions about what to do with your funds that would be best for your retirement journey. And you can use them for free because you are a state employee and they are contracted with the state of California. They do work for Nationwide, but they are contracted for state employees only. You can use them for free because this is part of one of your state benefits. And so that was a pretty brief discussion about Savings Plus. If you have any questions, like I said, please contact us. I will give you my phone number as well. It is area code 916-752-0353. I am available Monday through Friday, 6:30 to 5. My email address is tiffany.vick, which is tiffanie.vick@calhr.ca.gov. And I want to thank you for listening today and wish you good luck as you prepare for the retirement of your dreams. Thank you guys. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you, Katie, for putting all this together today. And thank you, everyone who participated in today's financial literacy webinar. And remember, there is plenty more information to enhance your financial literacy or capability at the virtual resource fair on our website at dfpi.ca.gov/resource-fair. So again, go check out the virtual booths right now if you want to. And the website will remain live after this event, so don't worry if you don't have time right now. Also on that website, there's a link to subscribe to the DFPI E&O newsletter, which I encourage you to do. And also a recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for California DFPI and you'll find it there. If you have any questions about anything in today's webinar, please do not hesitate to email any of the presenters directly, or you can email us at outreach@dfpi.ca.gov and we'll make sure it gets to the right place. Thank you one last time for attending. Be safe and have a great week, everyone.